Beautiful sunflower. Just needed to share. So we're finishing off watching our the Sound Healing Summit, and it's just been profound because our body, this host body, has been like teaching us so much over the last almost 4 years since the seizures, and my whole life I'm realising now, but it's only since the seizures where I was locked inside, my body was being taken over by these alternate personalities. I being the conscious, aware eyes at the time that I'd developed since I was 18 when I attempted suicide, and have been doing 22 years work of self-development, self-awareness, looking for that part. We're looking for happiness, I thought, but realised it was looking for a pain-free life, physically pain-free life because of the EDS. But before getting onto that, because this is going to be quick, isn't it, everyone, please? So we were just watching the key codes of sound. Now, sound is just so profound and so gentle. And the comment that he said was that in the last, I can't remember the exact figures, but maybe something like in the last 10 years, like scientists, so it's astrophysics, have, in the last how many years, by recording the sound of planets and stars, discovered more and gained more understanding than they have by using the light spectrum, radio spectrum, all those other spectrums, to understand it, basically. Now, if everything is atoms and everything vibrates, and everyone talks about light, but light hasn't worked for us. Where's the light? Oh, it's still there. Light hasn't worked for us because our internal processing model, and I suppose this links into our processing language disorder, but also our SCAR and maybe the autism, it's blind, deaf and dumb. And so the light, if there's too much oxygen, for instance, that used to come in through the nose or mouth, it would physically burn and hurt. And the light externally as well, we used to get sunburnt really easy, and I suppose that goes into the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. Maybe the fibromyalgia, I don't know, I think more the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, the EDS. But sound makes sense. So everything's just vibration at the end of the day, and the words and the language are just terminology that we put to it. And different people have different attachments to words and terminology, and therefore gain different understanding. But because we make assumptions and assume without realising that other people just think this thing means the same, because we don't communicate properly and don't listen to people properly and don't actually delve into a proper conversation of like listening by actually going, oh, I heard you say this, is that what you meant? I mean, it takes a lot longer, but you have a much more deep, meaningful conversation. You won't get as much covered, but you'll get to know the other person so much better, and yourself, because we can start applying this to ourselves. We've started applying it to ourselves first. No, that's a big number. Okay, we don't know about that one. That causes a bit chaos. So light travels faster than sound. But if something's travelling fast, you can miss it. It's there and then it's gone. So that reminds me of yoga, just being a teacher, or the yoga teacher training. If you're teaching poses to someone, but you can do those poses easily, then you're not really going to make a very good teacher, because when you have someone come to you that struggles with something, how are you going to be able to break it down to tell them how to overcome their struggles, because you've always found it easy? And this has always been one of our little sayings or mantras to keep us going, basically, because we struggle a lot. And it's like, oh, we're just struggling at this and we're struggling at that because it'll make us reach more people and it'll make us a better teacher. But we're getting it now. We're so getting it. And sound is slower. Sound is slower because you can't miss it. Sound is primal. Before you can talk or anything, they throw tantrums, they scream because they can't express, they don't have the language or the words to express what's going on for them, to release those dissonant frequencies or that pain. And now with the astrophysics saying that they've just discovered more by listening to the sounds of the stars and the planets, and that's why it's sacred geometry and it's all creation, because it is quantum physics at the end of the day. Newtonian physics is a small spectrum of this 3D reality that goes into the multi-dimensional infinite realities that are out there that we have the capability of tapping into by going inwards. And that's the beauty and the gift of the autism. The Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, and the autism is also very flexible or very rigid, and it can link into the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but I think the Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, EDS, is a umbrella terminology for lots of things, because that's a connective tissue disorder, a malfunction in the collagen protein, which goes around everything. But that is the fascia of the body. It connects everything in the body in an electromagnetic way. So it's kind of, in the physical reality, it comes second to the circulatory system, which carries the chemical, electrochemical information to the brain. And then the brain taps into a different state of consciousness, elemental consciousness, which then turns it into the electromagnetic energy that sends it down through the electrical signals, through light. But we've been doing like a qigong and a hanging upside down and really be getting into things lately, because we've had to, and we needed to change. And it's, the psych ward was horrific, but it gave us this understanding that we have travelled the world outside, and done so many amazing things, and now it's time to do that inwards. And it gave us our self-belief and our trust. But this new learning about the sound of what we've already embodied for years, but we had our first release of, not our first release of trauma, it's been going mad for like years, but our first trauma release through sound and movement, with no attachments, and it makes us want to cry, with no attachments in the mind to the trauma, to whatever it is, because of our mantras, because of our repetition. It's just the trauma happening again. It's just this. It's okay. We've just got to ride the wave, ride the emotions, release, transform those frequencies in the body, and then it will pass. And so it was we were standing up because we did a qigong sitting down and qigong standing up because we get very exhausted. And it was in the standing up one. And we incorporated our shaking medicine, our Pilates, our yoga, and the sounding, which we do, but having listened to the information from the Sound Healing Summit, and then that going in, the younger alternate personalities that don't have the consciousness or the brain networks of an adult, doesn't have the ability to communicate, doesn't have the words or the language. But when we've listened to these people talk about all this different stuff that's out there in the electromagnetic fields, the Akashic records, time and space information, whatever language you want to use to call it, and they say it with their words and their experiences, we then go, yeah, that's us, oh, that's us. And then we have the bank of language and information to then use for it. So we're doing our qigong, and we incorporated the sounding and the different movements in not such a sporadic, erratic way from the trial and error that we do it on ourselves, because we're going from one personality to another, which is going from one brain network to another brain network to another brain network, which is going to another network in the body to and it's like hectic. You're like in a squash room with like however many squash balls just go like round you completely. It can be pretty painful. But when you get away from that chaos into the where there's actual form and pattern, and rhythm and harmony in the chaos, which does happen, and that's the Tesla code, the 369. and this is circular system thinking, so it's right brain hemisphere, embodiment, then there's this balance and this harmony between the chaos and the dissonance. So it might not sound completely fluid and beautiful to an ear, but that's good because it includes everyone. Because if you're in a room which has got people that have experienced trauma and then people that just love life and live it and it's all great, you want to be able to incorporate both of them. So you need to be able to bring the harmonic, beautiful sounding frequencies in with the traumatic ones. And this is just linking us onto the water puppet show that we saw in Vietnam. And listening to the different music around the different worlds can be in a different key that we're not used to. And so it sounds not harmonious to the ear, but it's harmonious to them. So our processing language disorder and us being internally deaf, blind and dumb is fabulous, because it means that we've got the pure creation and the pure darkness of that void of potential for whatever to come out in complete authenticity, with integrity, because we've always done this from the heart and for everyone's highest good, to be just so unique but also transparent with it. And it's just given us so much clarity and understanding. I think we've covered what we wanted to say. The fibromyalgia is great because it makes new pathways, so when one tube or pathway or whatever gets blocked, it can just make another. It means you get double the amount of pain until you find your way back to the optimum pathway when you've cleared it. To clear stuff, if you think of a hose and pressure, you need to use the breath. The finer threads are the nasal breathing, the bigger threads are the mouth breathing. Changing the shape of your mouth, that makes it go wide. I'm not very good at that one yet, but it will be. That one makes it go long, and that one makes it really go narrow. So that accesses different parts of the areas of the body. So this is where sacred geometry kind of comes in, and alignment. But for the pressure, that's the POTS, postural orthotic trachea disorder or syndrome or whatever. That builds up the pressure in the body. So the fibromyalgia makes the new pathways or keeps it going. The POTS builds up the pressure to clear it. EDS is the connective tissue and the fascia, the highways for the information. The autism gives the multi-dimensional, completely out there, different level of thinking of the way the brain works. The IBS and all the stomach problems, it's all to do with the gut brain, because the gut brain comes first and that sends the chemicals up to the brain to produce the information from the brain that sends it back through your nervous system. But let's get away from the light and let's start understanding the darkness, because the darkness and the shadows is where the beauty lies, because anything can be created. So yeah, we've come to clarity and understanding and gratitude of just every experience and all the traumas in our life, because it makes us so unique, so original, and we're just going to keep growing and keep developing, and we've got so much to offer so many people out there, and we will just keep developing ourselves and growing so that we can understand and use right use of language, because it's not, a good teacher isn't the amount of information one has to deliver, it's the amount of different ways one can deliver that information to the individual for their specific needs in that specific moment. Yeah. Namaste. Try making mouth yoga. Move your mouth around your tongue. No, your tongue around your mouth. Make sounds. Move your face. Face yoga, mouth yoga, tongue yoga. We're going to read out our yoga stuff later, but it's just, yoga is life awareness and being present in the moment.